Hi, this is Brooke Medicine Eagle. I'm here with Returning to Earth, Becoming Fully Human. This is a dynamic forum of wisdom keepers, healers, teachers, leaders, whose focus is to give you real, grounded, sustainable solutions to the issues that are going on for all of us personally, as well as planetarily. And what a wonderful gift to have Clare DuBois here. She's the founder and CEO of Tree Sisters, a global women's movement, and spanning many countries, more than we could name, that's collectively funded the planting of over 13 million trees. Tree Sisters is a social change movement and a tropical reforestation organization working towards normalizing cultural reciprocity with nature. The aim of both Clare and Tree Sisters is to make it as normal to give back to nature as it is currently to take nature for granted, while supporting humanity in its transition from a consumer species to a restorer species. That's wonderful. I really love that we have gotten to be friends, and I so honor what you're doing and the fact that you're taking action. And I'd love to hear about how all of this got started, and just tell us about your passions and where we can go with all of this.
Gosh, where did it get started? Where did it get started? I mean, I guess it got started as a child with a complete love affair with trees and nature and all things living. And then climate change came into my awareness in my late teens, actually. What amazes me was that at school, I was reading newspaper articles about our warming world, you know, and that's 30 years ago. 30 years ago, we were being told what was coming.
Wow. Yeah.
And about 10 years after that, I started having dreams of no more clouds. And actually they weren't dreams, they were nightmares, because I'm British. Britain does clouds, you know, like we do rain at home. That's what we do. And
yes.
night after night, I would have dreams about no more clouds. And then in about 2001, I think, I went to a dance workshop on New Year's Eve, and part of the evening's entertainments was we were all going to do ritual theater. And you basically, if you want to, you know, rip my skin off and dip me in lemon, then make me do ritual theater and act in front of people. It was just like my idea of complete hell. But they gave my little pod of 7 people the rape of the earth. And I was like, fine, I'll be the earth. I'll just be raped. That's easy. Like I can just roll around and scream a lot, you know? And so they dressed me in everybody's clothing, and I was enormous. I was like wearing, you know, 20 shirts and scarves and, you know, God knows what. And then I was put on a throne. And they raped me, which basically meant they stripped me. They stripped me of my forests. They stripped me of my fish. They stripped me of my soil. They stripped me of my minerals. They stripped me of everything you could imagine. And all the while they were stripping me, I was handing out cups of tea, you know, because that's what Gaia does. Here you are. Here, have some more. I'll just keep giving. And they were just like pulling on hair and like yanking off my clothes, and I ended up naked except for like a sock, I think, and I screamed my most blood-curdling scream, and I fell on the floor and I lay there. And while I was lying there, they were supposed to have this kind of community moment of, oh, we've damaged our mother, let's come together and collaborate and, you know, put her back on her throne and everything. But I was lying on the ground and I was going into shock. I can very rarely tell this story without crying, actually. I was going into shock, and I could hear this nursery rhyme. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. And I was lying there just going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, we don't get a second chance. Oh my God, we don't get to put her back on her throne. Oh my God, when it's over, it's over. Oh my God, it's going to be over. It's going to be over. What are we going to do? And they put me back on my throne and they dressed me. And, you know, we can't put gold back in the ground. We can't put coal back. We can't do so much of what needs to be done. And I was sitting, staring at the audience who were just crying. The whole room was in tears. And I was numb. I was absolutely frozen numb. And they had to literally pick me up off my throne and put me down in the audience. And I sat there completely numb. And then, you know, everybody finished the theater and it was lovely. And then it was, oh, let's do present giving. And you had to put your hand in a bag and pick out a present and unwrap it. And I put my hand in this bag and I picked out this thing and I unwrapped it. And it was a little blue book with a cloud on the front. And in the cloud, it said, "You can change the world." Here I go. And I started bawling. Like I started absolutely incoherently bawling. And it was one of those moments where it was so bad and I was so dissociated that I could hear the sound of my crying. And I didn't know that it was me that was making the sound. I was just sat there in complete shock. And when I realized it was me, I picked myself up and I went outside and I howled and I howled and I howled probably for an hour. I could not stop. And while I was crying, I was having an argument with life. And I was just going, I've got to do something. I have to give my life. I have to give my life to the planet. I've got to give my life to the planet. Like my planet is dying. And then in would come, but you can do nothing. You're not worth anything. You don't know anything. You can't possibly do anything. And I'm like, but I've got to try. I've got to do something. I have to do something. Like my world is dying. But who would listen to you? And you're nothing. And then it went beyond me into this like womankind saying, I have to rise, I have to rise. And then the patriarchy coming down and saying, but you're nothing. You can't bring anything. You're, you know, and then this like, and I'm like, my consciousness is in the middle just going, ah. And then it got even bigger to humanity saying, we've got to do something, we've got to do something. And then our fears saying, but we're nothing, there's nothing we can do, like just look away. And I felt like I was being ripped into shreds, and I was just like full on meeting my own shadow, and my desperation and my love for this planet and my fear about what I'd just gone through on the floor, just feeling it, like I felt it, you know, we're killing her and she's still giving. She'll give until she can't give anymore, and we'll just keep killing her. And it was just like, that's it. My life as I know it is over. Like there's only one path for me now, and it's service. And by the time I'd finished crying, I had won. The part of me that cares had won over my insecurity and my fear and my I can't do anything. And so I committed. Like that was the biggest moment in my life of committing. I didn't know what I was going to do. I hadn't got a clue what it was going to look like. I sure as shit didn't think I could do anything, but I knew I was going to try. Like that was it. I was going to try. And that's when it changed, you know. And after that, I worked for an agroforestry initiative in southern India, and I developed the social strategy for it. I brought it back to the West. I was trying to get other people to do a reforestation revolution. I had a car crash. In the car crash, a tree stopped me from going over an edge when I was swerving on ice. And then when I crashed, this voice started talking to me in the car, and it basically gave me Tree Sisters. It gave me, your project is called Tree Sisters. It's a crowdfunding mechanism. You have to make it as normal to give back to nature as it currently is to take nature for granted. Women have to remember who and what they are. Feminine consciousness has to be reinstated or it's over. Call everything you do an experiment, because you can't fail an experiment. You can only learn. Like everything was just literally handed to me.
Wow.
And I said no for a year, and it wouldn't leave me alone. And then I said yes. And then the rest, as they say, is history. And it's not been easy at all. And it still isn't easy, because Tree Sisters stands at the intersect of the mother wound of humanity, the severing of our relationship with the feminine, And the intersection between climate change and the movement of money, we're asking people to pull money away from consumption and put it into restoration. And people haven't realized that putting money into restoration is restoring themselves, because they still see the planet as something over there, and they'd rather spend it on something that takes from the planet, because that's what we're used to, than giving back to the planet. So, we're standing in this really tricky place of, will you let yourself love and care for this planet of ours? And will you give to her? And can we plant that in the tropics for you? Are you willing to wake up to the fact that we're all responsible for climate change, and we all need to be a solution for climate change? And I've done all of this. I've done it from a total standing start without having any experience in any of it. So huge learning curve, and then bringing on, team members who had capacity to do it, and all the learnings, so there you are. That's the story of how it all came to be.
Wow. I'd love to share a story that was really great for me. I was in Montana in this beautiful home, and I was living there to take care of it for a friend of mine, and it had these beautiful windows looking out over this gorgeous forest. And right kind of on one side in the front was this beautiful pine tree, big pine tree. And I was sitting there and doing some kind of work or something, and I was going, yeah, we got to do something about these people that are ruining the forest and killing the forest, and we've got to change them. And on and on and on. It was kind of a rant in my heart, and thinking, we've got to do something, and we've got to stop these people that are cutting down the forests. And all of a sudden, this makes me feel like crying too. All of a sudden, the branches of this big tree started like waving, really obviously waving, and it was like, okay. And I started paying attention, and this big tree said to me, this brings up tears for me too. He said, what kind of chair is that you're sitting on? And I said, a wooden chair. He said, what's this house made of? And I said, well, it's made of wood. And he said, do you mean dead trees by any chance? And it just struck me. And this consciousness kept going around and showing me all of the ways that I use wood. And all of a sudden, it wasn't them anymore. It was all of us. And I really got how all of us are connected in this. And, I've always been very motivated to help the earth in any way I could. But that was such a profound lesson to realize it just isn't somebody out there doing it. I am participating, and I have to change something in here and understand that. And it's like a mindset, and as well as a change of heart, I think, that we have to realize that we are the ones. There are some people out there maybe doing it more actively, but we're the ones participating in the whole process.
Yeah. One time I was teaching a bunch of women how to channel the trees, and they said to me, every tree has a note, every forest is a symphony. If you want to heal the trees, sing to them. And we like Tibetan chanting in the mornings and lullabies at night. And when you use our bodies, we're still singing. Our bodies always sing. And I suddenly started looking around my home. Here I am, a wooden table, wooden bookcase, wooden chairs, wooden dresser, wooden chopping boards. And it's just like, how would it be for me if I could hear the song of the trees still coming through everything that we've made our own, without asking permission, without thanking, without doing ceremony, without honoring? How would it be? How would life be if we were fully conscious and interacting with a conscious world of which we were part, rather than a world that we have reduced to resources that we can use that we have no relationship with apart from what we can use them for or do to them. You know, I was at Rancho about 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, where we met, and there was a man there lecturing on genetics, like the genetic revolution. And I stayed for as much of one of the lectures as I possibly could. And then it was just like, I can't deal with this anymore. I can't deal with the arrogance over life. Oh yeah, we can get into the blueprint of life. We can do what we want to it. We can take genes from here and do that to this and then change this. And it was like, okay, I understand this for medical reasons. And I understand that it could have benefits for desperate illnesses, but that's not all you're doing. That's not all you're doing. And you're playing God, and you don't know at what point you stop, because you're so invested in the creative process and your genius, the possibility of making money, that the sacredness of life has gone. It's gone. You've lost touch with any of it, including your own. Like it's just so many facets of what's going on in our world right now are frankly terrifying. And how we stay centered, connected, in touch with love, in touch with the sacred, in touch with nature, in touch with ourselves, to me feels like one of the biggest challenges that any of us have, to just stay non-reactive, soften our bodies enough to be able to hear a deeper wisdom, like how to do that, how to help ourselves do that. And for me, I have to go outside instantly. I have to go outside. As soon as I come inside, I lose it. Take me outside, take me into nature, like take me into the sanity of nature, the interconnectedness of nature. I've got a chance then of reconnecting to who I am, to the web, you know, to the web, the real web that is conscious of me as I'm conscious of it.
Well, you know, I started out this whole series with a meditation to the Great Mother, or from the Great Mother, you know, really helping people understand that we all came from this deep, dark womb of the feminine, and that we're all related, and that all wisdom, all knowledge, all understanding is in the field. You know, it's already there. It's not like we have to figure it out so much as we have to tune in. We have to get out there and tune in deep in ourselves and the richness and wisdom that's within us, and for sure tune in to the larger life around us to understand the solutions that can work. Because a lot of times we're trying to do it from a sort of masculine, cerebral, you know, that little forebrain, and we do things that are not workable. So I think that mindset that says we are one with things, intelligence lives in things, answers and solutions live in the depth of the reality of this beautiful earth. It's like we were given so much by Creator, and we keep forgetting that. We keep separating ourselves from it. And I love the word, and I think you've said it, of connection. If somebody were to say to me, what one word would you sing into the universe if the only thing you could ever say and cause would be that one word? I would sing connection. Because when we're connected, then it all becomes more obvious. So I just love what you're sharing with us, and the intensity of it, because it is intense. I think one of the challenges we have in some way as makers of change is that if we get intense about it, and we get as kind of as freaked out and as anguished as we are about it, you know, people want to draw back, and they say, well, you're just being negative. It's like, well, you know, if there was a train coming and I said, watch out for the train, would that be negative? I mean, it's like, but it's so interesting to dance that balance of saying, you know, we're in deep trouble here, and being able to find that positive energy and sense of solution that can help people walk forward and not just be totally hopeless.
I remember age 10, walking up a hill with my mum telling her with great intensity what I was learning in my geography lessons at school. There are people that live in the forest. They still live in the forest. They're so backward, and you know they haven't discovered industrial agriculture yet. And the sooner we can get them out of the forest and teach them about proper ways of doing agriculture and blah 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 blah, the better, you know. And I remember being kind of horrified that there were people that still lived in the forest. I mean, there are tribes still on our planet, age 10, you know, 10-year-olds who'd been brought up playing cowboys and Indians in England, and then fell in love with Tibet and got to be in Tibet watching the Chinese liberating Tibet. And I remember being in China and hearing the Chinese people, you know, who had suffered or survived the Cultural Revolution, the hell that China was put through, saying, why do you want to go to Tibet? We haven't liberated it properly yet. And they were actually ashamed. They were ashamed of the Tibetans because, you know, they're so brainwashed around what development is and who the Tibetans are. And it was the first time I remembered that 10-year-old me going, oh my God, there are people that still live in the forest, you know, encultured, taught, educated, away from any understanding of reverence or connection or indivisibility or indigeneity. That word didn't even exist for me. Like indigenous peoples hadn't got a clue as a child. Just here's what culture's supposed to look like. Here's what agriculture's supposed to look like. Here's what land use is supposed to look like. Here's what, you know. And then I moved to America. I never meant to move to America. I never wanted to move to America because God knows the politics here is just my primary reason, that and land use. And then I started to meet indigenous people for the first time. You know, I started to meet a culture or cultures, many cultures now, that lived with the land, that knew how to live in sacred reciprocity, that were deeply woven into the fabric of their ancestors, who had a language that resonated with a level of connection that I'd never heard of before. I'd never felt it come through anybody before because it was so far removed from what I'd grown up with. And again, I remembered the 11-year-old saying, there are people live in the forests. And now it was just like, oh, now I want to cry again. Yeah. And part of my life now is given to making damn sure they get to stay in the forest and that we protect them and that we understand the value of that consciousness. And we wake people up to the consciousness of living with this planet, you know. But I think about who I've been in my life when I considered myself still a very deeply spiritual person. I had a hugely deep spiritual practice from like 17, 18 years old. But I was completely environmentally asleep beyond my love of nature, you know. I wanted fast food when I wanted it. I just wanted whatever I wanted when I wanted it. I just wanted convenience when I wanted it. You know, 95% of this whole Western world, the environment is just a pretty place to go and have a picnic. There's no real, like, that shift on the inside that happens that has you just go, oh my God, this is my breath, this is my blood, this is my body, this is everything. You know, I just met a man who said he'd spent his entire life just trying to get rich. That was all he was doing, just trying to get rich. He's a tycoon in Silicon Valley. And that during COVID, he'd suddenly looked out of his window and realized that there weren't any birds anymore, and had this massive awakening that the world was in peril and that he had to do something. And I was just like, what is it going to take for enough people to have some sort of an experience that bounces them out of the disconnected state of total unawareness of the interconnectedness of everything, the sacredness of nature. What does that even mean to somebody that just wants to buy a big new car? You know, how do we, like, what causes the tip that you and I now take for granted? You know, we've tipped. I mean, I've still got a long way to go to be in nature consciousness, you know, 24/7, but I know what's there. I know what's missing in me. I know what's possible. I know where I'm going. I know where we need to go. But we're like the minority of the minority of the minority. And we need to become, you know, much, much, much more than that. Like, how, you know, how do we do that? How do we help this world wake up to indivisibility when that flies in the face of all the comfort and convenience that we've taken for granted since we were born? Like, how do we do that?
I tell you, you're asking the same questions I am, for sure. And you know, one of the things for me is I've been missing the butterflies and insects. You know, it's like, and then of course, if there aren't insects, then I've heard people talk about birds just flying along and just falling out of the sky because they're dying. They don't have enough insects to eat. And you know, I've been so connected with the earth since I was a child, living just wild out on the reservation. And so I noticed those things, and I don't know exactly how to make the difference. I mean, I think I wonder what you're thinking about, like with Tree Sisters, at least inviting people to do, you know, they have something to do. They can offer support and start planting trees. Now, do you have any things where people go and plant the trees, or what is there a part of that people can be involved in, or is it simply contributions?
Anybody can plant trees wherever they are. You know, when it comes to the uniqueness of Tree Sisters, our uniqueness is that we're a blend of inner and outer work. So we look at the roots of climate change. We look at why is action not happening in the world. We see that as a reflection of the suppressed feminine in us, the inability to receive in relationship, intimacy with nature in a way that actually moves us into connection so that our behavior naturally changes, but also intimacy sufficient that we have enough energy to be able to make change, energy to give our gifts, energy to bring our creativity, energy to give back. Like, if that energy was there, we'd be doing it. Well, we do what we call the in-breath work, which is like courses and tools and meditations every full moon, and communities online where we're supporting each other, so that we've got some oomph in our systems in order to bring our gifts. And in terms of bringing your gifts inside of Tree Sisters, you know, there's those of us on the team, there's those of us that are volunteering, there are those of us who are going out in your communities and starting groves, Tree Sister circles. There are those of us who are using the support of the Tree Sisters Network to go out and start their initiatives in their community, or start, you know, forest schools, or host fundraisers, or do, you know, comedy nights or film nights, or like, there are so many ways that I did what I called a forest clothes swap, where, you know, 50 women from my community all arrived and like dumped all our clothes on the floor, and then every item of clothing that anybody picked up was 5 trees. You know, we raised something like 13, what was it, almost 3,000 trees in one night just from swapping clothes. And I mean, there are so many, and then, you know, during the clothes swap, I just become donors, and, you know, but we're always looking for ways to bring people together, show them something about Tree Sisters. And then when you become a donor, we plant your trees in Amazonian Brazil, and the Atlantic rainforest of Brazil, and Kenya, and Cameroon, and Mozambique, and Madagascar and India, Nepal, West Papua. We've just moved into Borneo. And these are all partners that we're working with. We've got a really diverse portfolio of projects. So when you give every month, you are directly planting in all of those countries, which is endangered species of trees and animals and reptiles and bugs, you name it. It's also getting people out of extreme poverty. It's also sequestering carbon. It's also bringing back rivers. It's also bringing back soil. It's also stabilizing climate. That's all happening. That 80% of what you give goes directly to that. 15% of what you give goes to help us campaigning and doing education stuff and helping and create courses and run things so that we're trying to get the love affair with trees out into the world so that we can then harvest that love affair and plant it in the tropics. But that doesn't stop you using the support of the Tree Sisters Network and figuring out, how do I bring my gifts to raise awareness, to bring people together, to deepen relationship with the natural world and create reciprocity through giving. So anybody can plant wherever they are because we all need to be. And instead of, 4 cups of coffee over the month that you buy from Starbucks, you give that to us and we plant, 40 trees with that, probably a month. That stacks up over a year. And that's just if you decide to let go of one thing. How many people have got capacity to give an awful lot more? So there are many different ways of getting involved with Tree Sisters. And the bottom line is giving. Bottom line is giving because we're all warming our planet and we all need to cool her down. Like everything we're doing. I'm sitting here, I've got light, computer, I'm chomping through I'm warming up our planet right now, just sitting here using the few things that I'm using. So how can I cool her down? Well, fast growing tropical trees sequester carbon between 3 and 9 times as fast as temperate trees. And we cannot allow the tropical forest belt of this world to turn to desert, because if it does, we're done. We're toast. There is no cooling down our world. The tropical forest belt is absolutely crucial to the hydrological cycles of our world. They're called rainforests for a reason. But we seem to have forgotten, because we're just in the world of television and whatever else we're in, that the ecosystems of our world create and perpetuate our weather. We need the ice at the ice caps. We need the forest around the hottest belt of our planet, because the contrast between the two creates the circularity system that allows the ocean currents to flow and the winds to happen and the weather systems to move around and the rain to be distributed. Gaia is beautiful. She's beautiful. She's created herself to provide us with extraordinary abundance and climates that we can depend upon, or used to be able to depend upon. They're gone. The climates that you and I grew up in are gone. They're gone. The kids that are being born today, they'll hear about what monsoons used to be when they arrived on time. In southern India where we're planting, they don't have monsoons anymore. They've gone. That's a massive weather system that the earth had created to do a certain thing at a certain time. It's gone. Our seasons, they're going. The ice at the poles, it's heating, multiple times faster than anybody ever thought was possible. Oh, that won't be happening until 2080. Well, why was it ever okay to think that in 2080 the kids then would be inheriting it, but actually the kids now are inheriting it? So while we're warming our world, if you partner with Tree Sisters, if you're a business and you want us to plant for you, if you're a church and you want us to plant with you, if you're a family, whoever you are, we will plant for you in, I think it's 11 different ecosystems now around the tropics, and you will be protecting orangutans and jaguar and puma and ocelots and cross-river gorillas and sloth and rhino and endangered monkeys and endangered trees and endangered fish eagles and endangered lemur. You will know that every day part of your love is going to these creatures that we cannot live without. We can't live without them. We mustn't live without them. And we need your creativity. There's just so many ways that you can get involved to bring your creativity. And it's fun and it gives you meaning and it's worthwhile and it's satisfying and it gives back to this world that has given you absolutely everything. And that's basically treesisters.org/join. Just get in there, or treesisters.org/give. You know, like just come in, discover us, find out what's happening, get involved, let us plant for you. It'd be wonderful.
I know, and you created such a wonderful, I mean, it's so easy. I mean, you have done the incredibly hard work and are continuing to do, you know, that you're doing the tough part, and it would be so easy for all of us to offer. You've made it so easy for us, so that I hope people really, you know, pay attention to this, and we can be active in so many ways. And the thing is, you know, you're talking about saving the, you know, taking care of the jaguars and taking care of the monkeys or whatever. And really, if we want to be selfish about it, we're taking care of ourselves here, because like you say, if we collapse these systems, if the insects go and the birds go, and then the ones that eat the birds, and the on and on and on, it doesn't, there's a point that our elders say we'll reach in this generation, this 20 years. If we can't turn it around, there'll be a point where things have collapsed enough that the whole, it's like this card, you know, it starts to fall a little bit, and there's a certain point where it's going to go. And so, you know, it's that same weird thing again. It's like, you know, about scaring people. It's like, well, I think we need to be a little scared here, gang. We're right on the edge of enormous challenges, and to think of coming back to a normal world, we better not think about that, because this normal world is causing an extinction, and we're going to join the species that are extinct, should we not decide to change. So it's really, you know, it's a good thing, it's a meaningful thing, it's a heartful thing, it's a moral thing, it's a sensible thing, and it's also a matter of, you know, survival, of surviving as a human family, of, you know, taking care of our children. I mean, it blows my mind that, especially people who are kind of actively damaging things and cutting and tearing and ripping and all of that, that they don't understand that it's their children too. It's like nobody gets in free, you know. Everybody is going to be affected by this. So I just think it's time to wake up at every possible level and come back to being what we were meant to be, which is, this is family, this is home, this is our home and family. And when you have home and family, one of the things you do is you take care of them. You know, you honor them, respect, love, and take care of them. And we need to step up and begin doing that. And I sure appreciate your the way you've stepped up and given us an opportunity to do that as well.
Thank you, Brooke. Well, none of us would knowingly treat our mothers like this. None of us would knowingly expect them to give and give and give while we tear them to shreds. It's just we're too insulated from the fact that we're tearing her to shreds, but we're tearing her to shreds. 1 in 5 countries' ecosystems are on the absolute verge of collapse. 1 in 5. The pack of cards that is our stable planet is falling apart right now. Now, what that says to me is we get to live the most meaningful lives that any generation has ever lived, because we get to turn it around, because if we don't turn it around, it's over. That means there is no more excuse to sit on your gifts. And that's what was going on for me. You know, like, I've got to do something. You can't do anything. There's nothing that you can do. Nothing you can do is good enough. It's like bullshit. You know, that's what we have to say to the voices in our heads that say, I'm not enough, and what will people think? And they'll think you're having a go. They'll think you care. They may think, oh my God, I wish you weren't, because I don't have to look at it. And you may have some people that just want to say climate change isn't real, and, you know, whatever else. Okay, let them live in the world that they need to live in, because they can't cope with reality. Find your way into reality and recognize it for what it is. The biggest opportunity we have ever had to discover what we're made of. You know, I may be exhausted the majority of the time, but I am living such a meaningful life. I'm living a life where my limitations don't matter anymore. You know, I just cross them constantly, which means I'm an ever-changing shape. I'm an ever-changing, evolving being. I never know who I am from one day to the next. It's like, I love that. I love the fact that my fears do not have control over me anymore, not in the ways that really matter to me. You know, I get, it's like unchaining yourself from the crap that we've all been conditioned with. Like, unchain yourself. Step out into the glorious freedom of your self-determination and your commitment to love. You know, your word is connection. My word is intimacy. Intimacy. Because if I'm intimate with the trees and I'm intimate with the sky and I'm intimate with this planet, then I can't help know that I belong. And if I belong, then there's no fear. There's no fear because everything is my ally. I belong to everything. I belong to this planet. If I'm there, I will do less and less and less harm. And I will love more and more and more. And that's the world. That's the world that I want for everybody. I want that for everybody.
Well, Claire, thank you so much for this. It's just been wonderful. And that I would join you in that wish as well. You know, we've been given this radiant, absolutely gorgeous planet that I'm just totally in love with. And I believe that I believe we can step up, and as we take off the suppression and take away the things that we're doing that are so challenging. You know, life is so rich. Life is just wanting to grow and get more verdant, and there's just such excitement and possibility if we can just step up and do our part. So I want to thank you so much for what you're doing. I want to invite everyone, go to Tree Sisters, do it, just do it, and you'll be glad you did. And so will the earth. So thank you so very much, and you take care, get some rest, and be good to yourself along with the planet, and we'll talk again.
Thank you, Brooke. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
All right.